What's up, good people? It's your boy Zay, and I'm back with another video. So today, I'm going to show you guys how to utilize agile practices in your investing strategy. I get a lot of questions about when should I buy? How frequent should I buy? Is it too late to buy? So hopefully explaining this framework, and it's an investing framework. So I'm going to show you how I took something that I do in my professional career, and I'll break down what Agile is and all of that stuff and how I use it in my investing strategy, and you can do the same. So that's gonna be the purpose of this video. And as y'all know, we're gonna go step by step. Now, before we get into the video, of course, I need you guys to like, share, and subscribe. Don't forget, press that notification bell so every time I drop a video, you get notifications as well. I wanna shout out all the cousins, appreciate all the support. Go ahead, don't forget, drop a comment down below of any other video ideas you guys might want me to do. I know you guys are loving like the whole, going into the deeper breakdown, so I'll do more if that's what you guys want. So I'm gonna quit rambling, and we're gonna get into how to utilize agile practices into your investing strategy. Let's go. All right, family, so here it is. So how to utilize agile practices in your investing strategy. So I know a lot of y'all are probably like, what the hell is Agile? So if you are not familiar with like software development or don't work in the IT industry, you probably aren't too familiar with it, but it's just a methodology on how you get work done, right? It's a way to get work done. And I took it and I basically implemented it into my investing strategy. So what I'm gonna get in, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give y'all a quick breakdown. So try to get through this quick. I'm gonna take it slow, but I wanna get to the implementation part, okay? So what is Agile, right? So Agile is all about continuous improvement, okay? It's all about iteration. So getting things done in intervals and continuously improving. That's like what Agile is all about. So Agile is also made up of 4 core values. So I'm gonna go through those real quick and explain what they are. So the first core value is individuals and interactions over process and tools. Now, it's not saying that you shouldn't have process or tools. It's just saying that the people who use those process and tools need to interact. So, at some workplaces, you have departments who hand work off, right? But there's no real interaction between the people to say, hey, this application might be messed up, or there's no real interaction between the people. Everything is just let the system do it. And, if it's a backlog, it's all blamed on the system. Instead, people working together to solve problems, you're relying on systems. So it's just saying, hey, prioritize people working together within the process and tools and just interacting. Then you have working product over comprehensive documentation. Now, what that means is, when you're in a project, right, you got to have project documentation. You have a project plan, all that type of stuff. However, it's better to actually have a working product, right? Like, what's good to have all this documentation to tell you how something works if the thing that you're actually trying to use doesn't work? So this is just saying prioritize your product over all the documentation, okay? It's good to have documentation, but make sure whatever it is works first. Then you have customer collaboration over contract negotiation. So what this means is that typically when you have a client and you're supposed to provide a deliverable for them, they provide you some requirements, your team goes and builds it, and then you give it to them. And most of the time when this happens, the projects fail because requirements have changed during that development process. And typically the customer needs you to make a whole bunch of changes because it's not, what they gave you has now changed because due to whatever situations within the business, right? So what this is talking about is saying, instead of doing it that way, you need to have a constant feedback loop with your customer. So every 2 weeks, and we'll get into this in a second, you need to say, okay, hey customer, here's what we've built, or here customer, this is what we've built so far. How does it work? Is this, has anything changed? Is this what you guys want? Is there, any changes you guys want to do? And so forth. So that's basically the customer collaboration over contract negotiation. Just work with your customer throughout the development process to make sure you can catch any changing requirements or anything like that. And typically when you do that, you have a higher success rate of projects. Then you have the last one. That's responding to change over following a plan. Now, this is just saying you need to have a plan, but you need to be flexible within your plan. You need to be able to respond to change because, again, factors may change, variables may change, and a lot of this stuff that I'm saying is going to be really relevant to the investing world. So that's why I really want to give you guys the background of what Agile is and how it works and stuff like that, and how I think. You guys kind of get an inside view into how I think. So I need a plan, but I also need to be able to respond to change. And that's the 4 core values of Agile. And then you have 12 principles, but I'm not going to get into all that because that's basically, it doesn't matter. Now that you know what Agile is and the methodology, you have that understanding. In order to achieve agility, there's different frameworks that you can use. For anybody who's a developer that's watching this video or actually works in Scrum or Agile world, they probably know what I'm talking about. If you do, go ahead, drop down in the comment what you do if you're a Scrum Master or a product owner or a developer, engineer, lead dev, all that good stuff. I'm a little bit of a nerd. But check it. So we have this framework that you implement or that you use to implement to become Agile. And it's called Scrum. Now, there's a couple of others. I'm not going to get into it because, again, this isn't my whole thing. So what I wanted to show you guys is Scrum. So within Scrum, there are certain ceremonies or meetings, essentially, that you have to have. And I'm going to go through these really quick. So there's what's known as a sprint. Now, a sprint is just a 2-week work interval where you work on agreed tasks, okay? So like you have a team, you guys come into a meeting, which we'll talk about in a second. You'll agree on some tasks that you're going to work on in the next 2 weeks. And y'all going to come together and talk about the progress on it. And we'll get into that in a second. All right, so that's a sprint. Then you have what's called a daily stand-up. Now, a daily stand-up is just like a 15-minute check-in with a team. But you ask the team comes together and they talk about 3 core things. They say, hey, what did you complete yesterday? Like, what progress have you made on the agreed upon items? What do you plan to do? What do you plan to do today from the agreed upon items, from the agreed items? And do you have anything preventing you from achieving your task? So is there any blockers or impediments or what they're called, like in your way that are stopping you from completing one of the tasks? If so, you need to talk about that and see if you can get some help. Then you have what's called a backlog groomer, right? So this is where when you're working on a project, you basically got to flush out an idea, you got to fine tune it, you need them to be worked. And again, all this stuff is going to be relevant in a second. So if you stick with me, I promise you, we're going to get to the next slide the next slide after this is the next part, is the good part. Then you have, backlog room is you flush out your ideas, all that good stuff, right? You make sure that what you're about to work on is actually workable. Then you have sprint planning. And in sprint planning, you come together as a team and you guys talk about the items that's in what's called a backlog. So all the stuff y'all need to do. And y'all say, okay, this is what we can do in this next 2 weeks. And we agree that we can get this work done in the next 2 weeks. So that's sprint planning. Y'all step out and then the sprint starts. So as you can see from this diagram, you have the sprint planning, you have the sprint, grooming happens within the sprint, and you have a review and a retro. All right, and daily stand-up happen every day. So then after planning, you have what's called a review, right? So review is basically you just review like the things you guys did during that sprint. Like, did you get everything you said you were going to work on done? If not, what happened? Why not? And you guys just review the progress that you've made on the project. Are you still on track to meet the end goal? Then the last thing, you have what's called a sprint retrospective. This is where you come together as a team and you reflect on the sprint. What went well, what didn't go well, what will you do differently, in the next sprint, right? So as a team, you talk about and communicate like, hey, what went well? What did we execute well? What didn't we execute well? What can we get better at? And then you talk about, okay, the next sprint, this is what we're going to do better, and we're going to keep doing this, okay? So that is a crash course into Scrum and Agile. Now, what's dope is I just gave y'all a freaking certification that y'all don't really even know about. So if somebody ever says, hey, do you know about Agile or Scrum? You can be like, yup. And then you can also tell them that if they say Agile and Scrum is the same thing, that is not right. Because Agile is technically a methodology. Scrum is the framework you use to achieve agility. So So with that said, we're gonna get into how do we use this with our investing, right? That's probably what y'all thinking. Y'all sat through this, now you're like, all right, Zay, I didn't listen to you talk about all this shit I have no idea about. But now I'm gonna tell you how we're gonna translate this into investing. All right, so implementation. All right, implementation. So what I call it agile investing, a new way to invest. So what I did is I took those scrum ceremonies and I turned it into investing ceremonies or investing meetings. This is how I want you to think about it, right? Now, remember them things I talked about, a sprint? Well, for us, a sprint is going to be a quarterly investing period where you can buy or build rolling positions for that quarter's quadruple witching. What do you mean, Zay? Example, September 2020 quadruple witching started mid-September. Between mid-September of 2020 and up until December 2020, it is okay to buy positions for September quadruple witching. You don't have to do it on one specific day. You can buy any day in between this period, and it will count towards your September's quadruple witching, and so forth. So when you get to December, it will be December all the way through March, and you just kind of do it that way. So you don't have to buy it like the very first day. You can wait, you can give it a month, you have 2 months, you can do dollar cost average, you can, purchase every month. But your sprint is a whole quarter. Then you're going to have daily, weekly check-ins, right? So this is where you need to at least check into the market every day for 30 minutes. And weekly, you need to be spending at least 2.5 hours just, kind of monitoring the market, doing some research, just monitoring your portfolio, anything that you need to do to keep up. And what you really want to ask yourself, similar to those questions in that stand-up, is like, okay, what happened yesterday in the market or what happened last week, depending on how you monitor it? What's going on today? What's the outlook look like? Is there any news or any changes as far as policy or what we're dealing with when it comes to, the COVID-19 stuff and the election and policies and the stimulus, all of that, right? So, you want to kind of assess that information. Then, remember how we talked about that backlog grooming thing? Well, you're going to have what's called a watch list grooming. So that's where you're going to have a watch list of companies you like, and you're going to conduct fundamental and technical analysis on these companies. You need to figure out what price points you want to buy them at, how long you want to be in your trade, what are the fundamentals of the company, is it a good trade? You really want to take some time and, fine tune those businesses, understand what you investing in, right? So that's your watch list grooming. You need to be constantly doing that. So and I'm gonna show you a breakdown in a second, but that's watch list grooming. Then you need to be planning your trade. So remember, plan your trade your plan. You want to start thinking about the next quarter interval of investments that you might want to do for the next quad, and really, again, just think about, okay, when positions come available, I know when to strike. So plan your trades. Then you want to have quarterly reviews, right? So because each sprint is a quarter, you want to have a quarterly review. You need to review your portfolio, assess your portfolio. Do you need to cut something? Do you need to rebalance something? And if you think about it, when we're 2 years from here, do you need to roll a position? That's going to be something that you want to think about when you have your quarterly review of your portfolio. Then you have what's called your sprint retrospective, right? So you need to reflect on that past investing quarter. What went well? What didn't go well? What would you do differently? So when we talk about what went well, think about the economics. What's going well in the economy? What businesses are booming? What didn't go well? What businesses took a hit? Why did they take a hit? What did you do investing wise when you saw those things were happening? Like, evaluate your strategy and how you want to move forward in the market. Do you need to adjust? Is everything fine? Or is there something that you've seen that's caught your attention and you want to adjust? And you do that on a quarterly basis, right? So you probably like, damn, Zay, what does that kind of look like? Well, let me show you. Boom. This is an example of what it would technically look like if you did like agile investing. So September 2020 quadruple witching. Any position you could have bought in September, October, or November would have counted towards September's quadruple witching, right? Then also during this quadruple witching, you should have been doing what's called watch list grooming, getting ready for December quadruple witching, right? And all throughout December, January, February, all the research you did here, you will be executing on when you get to this quarter, right? Now, while you're executing on this research, you need to then again start doing more watch list grooming, or you may want to just stick with your current picks, but you need to be doing your research to get ready for, again, the next quadruple witching. And essentially, when you get to the end of November, you need to conduct a review. You need to do a retrospective. How did this first quadruple witching go for you? We are literally almost at the end of the first quadruple witching period. Reflect on this journey. How has it been for you? What have you learned? What do you want to do differently? These are some of the questions that you want to ask yourself and think about when you're going through this process. And then again, you're going to have, like I said, planning. You should have definitely had a planning meeting during 2020 or during this November to say, you know what, I'm going to start planning my trades for, December, January, February, and so forth. And so, again, hopefully, let me go back. We did the grooming, planning your trade, your reviews, your respectives. And again, you just do your daily check-ins every day. And that's it, guys. Like, that is definitely a strategy or a plan that you can use to help manage how you want to invest. Again, like I said, I get a few questions of just, people are like, hey, do I have to wait when quadruple witching happens? Can I buy now? Well, this will help you manage your investing schedule in your investment portfolio. Because with this schedule, you can do dollar cost average. You can literally buy a position every month, and then this closes it out. Then you build positions here, close it out. And when you go to roll, they should all have the same expiration date, because new contracts aren't going to open. So you should be doubling down or just adding new long-term contracts that all have that same expiration date. So even when you go to roll, you'll be rolling a whole set of contracts that you've accumulated between September, October, and November, and so forth. So guys, I hope seeing this strategy in motion helps. If you have any questions, feel free to drop a comment. And yes, what I'm gonna do is we're gonna close this video out. All right, family. So that was how to utilize agile practices in your investing strategy. I hope, going through and explaining what agile is, seeing how you can take those simple ceremonies and turn those into investing ceremonies and really put together a defined strategy so you know how to move and move accordingly. If you have any questions, again, feel free to just drop a comment down below and I'll try to answer them. But until the next video, guys, y'all know what to do. Stay blessed and peace out.